In 1956, you could slide onto a chrome swivel stool at the Woolworth's lunch counter on Yonge Street and order a full hot meal, a slice of pie, and bottomless coffee for 89 cents. Today, every one of those counters is gone. The waitresses in paper hats, the pie cases rotating under glass, the smell of grilling onions hitting you at the door. All of it vanished. But here is what nobody tells you. Number 14 on this list was so beloved that Eaton's served over 1,000 portions a day during Christmas shopping season, and you cannot order it anywhere in Canada now. And number 3 disappeared so completely that most Canadians under 50 have never even heard its name. These 25 meals fed an entire generation for pocket change. Hit subscribe, because this is the menu they took away from us. Let us begin with number 25. Number 25, the Toasted Western. This was Canada's answer to the Denver sandwich, and it ruled every lunch counter from Halifax to Victoria. The cook cracked 2 eggs onto the griddle, folded in diced ham, onion, and green pepper, and flipped the whole thing into a neat square that slid perfectly between 2 slices of buttered toast. The legend says it started in railway dining cars, where cooks needed to disguise eggs that had traveled a few too many miles, and the onion did exactly that. By the 1950s, it cost 35 cents at Kresge's, and regulars ordered it without ever looking at the menu. You would hear the spatula scrape, smell the onions hit the grill, and know yours was 30 seconds away. Diners still serve Western omelets, but the true toasted Western, griddled flat and pressed into soft white toast, left when the counters did. Number 24, tomato soup and grilled cheese, the combination plate that warmed every Canadian winter. The soup came out of the steam table, glowing Campbell's Red, served in a thick white bowl with a sleeve of soda crackers tucked beside it. The grilled cheese arrived cut on the diagonal, butter crisped on the flat top until the processed cheese ran like lava. At the Metropolitan Stores counter, the combo cost 45 cents, and on a February day in Winnipeg, with the wind howling down Portage Avenue, there was nothing better. Children crumbled crackers into the soup until it turned thick as porridge. Office girls dunked the sandwich corners. The waitress refilled your coffee without being asked. You can still make this at home, of course, but the version made on a 50-year-old seasoned griddle, eaten elbow to elbow with strangers, that exact meal is extinct. Number 23, chicken a la king on toast points. This was the elegant order, the one the ladies chose after a morning of shopping at Simpson's. Cubed chicken, sweet green peas, and strips of red pimento swam in a velvety cream sauce, ladled generously over triangles of crisp toast arranged like a star. It looked like something from a hotel ballroom, but it cost 60 cents at the counter. The genius was thrift in disguise. The kitchen used every scrap of yesterday's roasted chicken, stretched it with white sauce, and dressed it up with a few cents of pimento for color. The sauce soaked into the toast just enough to soften it without collapsing it. Department store tea rooms built their reputations on this dish. And when the tea rooms closed in the 1970s and the 1980s, chicken a la king went with them, remembered now mostly as a punchline, instead of the small luxury it truly was. Number 22, the honey-dew and hot dog combo. If you grew up in Toronto, you remember that frothy, pale orange drink, served ice-cold from a churning glass dispenser that hypnotized every child who walked past. Honey-dew was a Canadian chain, and the recipe for that drink was a guarded secret. Sweet and creamy, and somehow nothing like plain orange juice. The classic order was a honey-dew and a grilled hot dog on a buttered toasted bun, about 25 cents for the pair. Workers grabbed it standing up. Couples shared a booth after the pictures. At its peak, the chain had locations across Ontario and beyond, and the orange drink was bottled for home ice boxes. Then the company changed hands. The stores closed one by one through the 1970s, and the formula faded away. Imitations exist. The real thing, served foaming into a cold glass, does not. Number 21. Egg salad on white. The humble sandwich on the board, and somehow the one people miss most. Hard-boiled eggs were mashed with real mayonnaise, a spoonful of yellow mustard, salt, and white pepper, then spread thick on soft white bread with a single leaf of iceberg lettuce. It was cut into quarters, stacked too high, and served with a pickle spear and a few ripple chips for 25 cents. The bread mattered. It had to be fresh bakery white, soft enough to compress slightly under your fingers. Counter cooks made the filling in huge crocks every morning, and by noon it was gone. There was no garnish, no pretense, no menu description longer than 4 words. Today's versions come shrink-wrapped in gas station coolers, pale ghosts of the original. The 1950s egg salad sandwich was simple food made carefully, and that, it turns out, was the whole secret. Number 20. The fried bologna sandwich. Out east, they called it Newfoundland steak, and they were only half joking. Thick slices of bologna, cut fresh off the chub at the counter, were nicked around the edges so they would not cup up on the griddle, then fried until the rims went brown and crispy. Stacked on white bread with fried onions and a swipe of mustard, it cost 30 cents and ate like a meal twice the price. In Newfoundland, which had only joined Confederation in 1949, bologna was not a staple. It was fried for breakfast, lunch, and supper. Mainland lunch counters served their own versions to factory workers who needed something hot, salty, and fast. The smell of frying bologna meant payday was still a few days off, but nobody at the counter was complaining. Try ordering one anywhere now. The blank stare you get says everything. Number 19. Fountain Cokes, mixed to order. Before cans and bottles took over, your Coke was built in front of you. The soda jerk pumped Coca-Cola syrup into a glass, hit it with carbonated water from the fountain arm, and stirred it with a long spoon. And here is what we lost. For a penny more, he would pump in cherry syrup, or vanilla, or lemon, or chocolate, making combinations no factory ever bottled. A cherry Coke cost a nickel in 1952, maybe a dime by decade's end. Kids invented their own orders. A chocolate Coke, a lime Ricky with extra lime. The drink came over chipped ice with a paper straw, colder and fizzier than anything from a machine because the carbonation was fresh from the tank. When the fountains were ripped out in the 1970s, an entire art form of custom soft drinks disappeared, and we settled for whatever the can decided we wanted. Number 18. And here is where things get interesting. The hot hamburger sandwich. Not a hamburger, something better. A beef patty was laid on a slice of plain white bread, topped with a second slice, then the whole thing was drowned, completely submerged in dark brown gravy with a scoop of canned peas and a pile of fries riding alongside. In Quebec, they called it hot hamburger, and it became religion. Elsewhere, it was the 65-cent special that filled every working man in the room. The magic was the bread. It soaked up gravy until it turned into something between bread and pudding, soft enough to cut with a fork. Food scientists will tell you that starch saturated with fat and stock delivers flavor to the tongue more efficiently than meat alone. Your grandmother's generation did not need the science. They just knew that gravy-soaked bread was the best part of the plate. Number 17. The banana split. 35 cents bought you the most theatrical dessert in the country. A banana sliced lengthwise into a glass boat, 3 scoops of ice cream lined up like soldiers, vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, each one dressed with its own sauce. Then the whole production buried under whipped cream, chopped nuts, and 3 maraschino cherries. The soda jerk built it in full view, and watching was half the experience. Teenagers split one with 2 spoons on Saturday afternoons, which is how a fair number of Canadian marriages technically began. Some counters ran a standing deal. If the cherry on your sundae had no stem, the dessert was free, and kids checked every time. Ice cream parlors today sell banana splits for $12, but the long marble counter, the bow tie, the boat-shaped glass dish that weighed a pound, that whole world melted away. Number 16. Liver and onions, the blue plate special. Every counter ran it on Thursdays, and every mother in the neighborhood approved. Thin slices of beef liver were dredged in seasoned flour and fried fast on the flat top, then smothered in a tangle of onions, cooked slow until they turned sweet and golden. With mashed potatoes and gravy, the plate cost 55 cents. The cooks knew the one rule that home kitchens kept breaking. Liver cooked 1 minute too long turns to shoe leather, so they pulled it the second it firmed up, still blushing inside. Doctors of the era prescribed liver for tired blood, and mothers sent picky husbands to the counter to eat what they refused at home. When offal fell out of fashion in the 1980s, liver vanished from menus almost overnight. The generation that ate it weekly is the same generation that lived into their 90s. Make of that what you will. Number 15. Salisbury steak with mushroom gravy. This was the dish that let a working man eat steak on a hamburger budget. Ground beef was mixed with breadcrumbs, minced onion, and a beaten egg, shaped into a thick oval, seared hard on the griddle, then simmered in brown gravy, studded with tinned mushrooms. With mashed potatoes and a scoop of carrots and peas, it anchored the 65-cent blue plate. The crust from the flat top was the secret. A layer of browned, crispy beef that no frozen dinner ever duplicated. The waitress called your order down the counter in code, and the cook had it plated in 6 minutes. Swanson put Salisbury steak in an aluminum tray in the late 1950s, and within 20 years, the TV dinner version had completely erased the memory of the real thing. We traded a fresh seared steak dinner for a frozen rectangle and called it progress. Number 14. The Eaton's Chicken Pot Pie. Here it is, the legend. On the 9th floor of Eaton's College Street in Toronto, and in Eaton's dining rooms across the country, the chicken pot pie was an institution. A golden lid of flaky pastry concealed chunks of white chicken, peas, carrots, and pearl onions in a cream sauce so rich it barely moved. During the Christmas shopping rush, the dining rooms turned out well over 1,000 portions a day. Mothers planned entire downtown expeditions around it. Children who behaved in the toy department earned a pot pie upstairs. It cost around 75 cents, white tablecloth included. When Eaton's collapsed in 1999, the pot pie became a national obsession. Recreated recipes circulate to this day, passed around like family heirlooms, and people still argue online about whether the sauce had sherry in it. A department store died, and Canada lost its most famous lunch. Number 13. Macaroni and cheese with stewed tomatoes. Hear me out, because this combination sounds wrong and tastes right. A brick of baked macaroni and cheese, crusty on top from the oven, whopped to the counter with a ladle of stewed tomatoes spooned directly over it. The tomato juice cutting through the richness like vinegar on chips. It was a 40-cent plate, pure prairie church basement cooking brought downtown. Kraft Dinner had arrived in 1937 and was already conquering home kitchens at 2 boxes for a quarter. But the counter version was different. Real cheddar, baked until the edges went brown and chewy, the corner pieces requested by name. The stewed tomatoes were non-negotiable to those who grew up with it and baffling to everyone else. The pairing quietly died out by the 1980s, and an entire flavor memory, sweet sour tomato against sharp baked cheese, died with it. Number 12. Second pattern break, because this next one was the show-off order, the clubhouse sandwich. 3 decks of toasted white bread, layered with sliced chicken, crisp bacon, lettuce, tomato, and mayonnaise, cut into 4 towering triangles, each one speared with a frilled cellophane toothpick. At 65 cents, it was among the priciest things on the board, and ordering it said something. This was the salesman closing a deal. the couple celebrating, the aunt visiting from out of town. The construction mattered. The middle slice of toast kept the chicken layer separate from the bacon layer, so every bite delivered both. The toothpicks were not decoration. They were engineering, holding the tower together until the moment of collapse. Restaurants still sell club sandwiches, but they are afterthoughts now, assembled without care. The 1950s clubhouse, built by a counterman who made 40 a day, was architecture. Number 11, the jellied salad plate. Before you laugh, understand that in 1955, this was sophistication. A shimmering ring of lime gelatin suspended with shredded cabbage, grated carrot, and sometimes a daring layer of cottage cheese was unmolded onto a leaf of iceberg lettuce and served with a dollop of salad dressing and a buttered roll. The counters called it the ladies' plate, and it cost 50 cents. Refrigeration was still new enough that a perfectly set jelly signaled modernity, the same way an air fryer signals it today. Whole cookbooks were devoted to the form: lime with vegetables, lemon with canned fruit, tomato aspic with celery for the truly committed. The wobble of that salad crossing the counter on a tray was the wobble of post-war optimism itself. By 1980, it was a joke, but for one shining decade, jellied salad was the future, and the future tasted like lime. Number 10, beef barley soup from the steam kettle. Every morning before the doors opened, the counter cook started the soup. Beef shanks, barley, carrots, onions, and celery went into a steam-jacketed kettle the size of a bathtub and simmered until the broth turned glossy and the barley swelled soft. By noon, the whole counter smelled like somebody's grandmother's kitchen. A deep bowl cost 20 cents, crackers included, and on the prairies in January, it was less a menu item than a public service. The shank bones gave up their marrow into the broth, which is why it coated your spoon in a way no tinned soup ever has. Regulars timed their lunch to soup readiness. Old men ate it daily and lived forever. When the counters closed, the kettles were sold for scrap, and the daily ritual of soup made from actual bones quietly left Canadian public life. Number 9, date squares, which half the country called matrimonial cake. 2 layers of buttery oat crumble pressed around a thick filling of dates simmered down to sticky sweetness, cut into squares and stacked in the pie case beside the register. 15 cents bought a square and a coffee refill. And on the prairies, this was the standard mid-afternoon order. Why matrimonial cake? The old joke said marriage was just like the square, sweet in the middle and crumbly around the edges. Farm wives baked them by the panful, and lunch counters bought from local women, which means the square you ate at the Zeller's counter in Regina was quite possibly made in somebody's actual kitchen that morning. Coffee shops today sell date squares wrapped in plastic, dry and apologetic. The real one, soft, warm, spiced, slightly falling apart, came with a name and a wink. Number 8, the maple walnut sundae. Of all the flavors Canada gave the world, maple walnut was ours most completely, and the lunch counter sundae was its finest hour. 2 scoops of maple walnut ice cream, dense with toasted nuts, drenched in real maple syrup, crowned with whipped cream and more walnuts. 30 cents at the Laura Secord counter, and worth skipping the streetcar fare to afford. The syrup was the real thing, from Quebec sugar bushes, back when a tin of it cost less than fancy imported toppings. The flavor ruled ice cream parlors for decades, the default choice of fathers and grandfathers across the country. Then tastes shifted. Cookie dough and candy-loaded flavors took the freezer space, and maple walnut became the tub-gathering frost at the back. Some grocery brands still make it, but the sundae, built properly, with syrup and a long spoon, is gone. Number 7, butterscotch pie. The pie case was the lunch counter's crown jewel, rotating slowly under glass, and butterscotch was its dark horse. The filling was a custard of brown sugar cooked in butter until it nearly burned, that edge of bitterness being the whole point, thickened with egg yolks and poured into a flaky lard crust. On top, a cloud of meringue, or a drift of whipped cream. A slice cost 15 cents, and the waitresses always knew exactly how many slices were left. Counter pies were baked in-house every morning by women who measured nothing and missed never. Butterscotch demanded skill. Cook the sugar 1 minute short and you got caramel pudding. 1 minute long and you got an ashtray. When the counters closed, the pie women retired, and butterscotch pie, too finicky for factories, simply ceased to exist outside a few stubborn, rural diners. Number 6. Third pattern break, because we need to talk about the pie case itself for a moment. Lemon meringue pie was its undisputed queen, a mile-high crown of toasted meringue, golden tipped and glossy, sitting on a filling so yellow and so tart it made your jaw ache from across the room. The counters competed on meringue height the way restaurants now compete on burger stacks. 15 cents a slice, 20 cents if the counter had pretensions. The filling was made with fresh lemons and cornstarch in a double boiler, and the meringue was whipped by hand and sealed to the crust edge so it never wept. Here is what changed. Pre-made pies arrived frozen in the 1970s, with meringue that stood 2 centimeters tall and tasted of nothing. We accepted it. We should not have. Anyone who ever ate counter lemon meringue, cold from the case on a hot July day, knows what was lost. Number 5. The malted milkshake with a metal canister. The soda jerk dropped 3 scoops of ice cream, whole milk, syrup, and a heaping spoonful of malted milk powder into a steel cup, locked it onto the green Hamilton Beach spindle mixer, and let it roar. The shake came to you in a tall glass, but the canister came too, sweating and frosted, holding the second half. That was the deal. 1 shake, served twice. 20 cents in 1953. The malt powder was the secret, adding a toasty, almost caramel depth that plain shakes never had. Teenagers ordered them after school and made them last an hour. 2 straws, if the date was going well. Fast food chains killed the malted by switching to soft-serve machines that pumped out air and called it a shake. The roar of the spindle mixer, the bonus canister, the actual ice cream, all gone. Number 4. The hot turkey sandwich. Picture the hot hamburger from earlier, but elevated to occasion food. Slices of real roasted turkey, carved off birds, the counter roasted overnight, were layered between white bread, blanketed in pale turkey gravy, and served with cranberry sauce glowing on the side of the plate, plus mashed potatoes and peas. 70 cents, and worth every penny. This was the meal that fueled Christmas shopping across the country, the reward for surviving the crowds at Eaton's and Simpson's with your parcels intact. The counters sold hundreds of plates a day through December. The smell of roasting turkey drifting through a department store basement is a sensory memory an entire generation shares and cannot retrieve. Diners in small-town Canada still serve hot turkey sandwiches and bless them for it. But the downtown version, eaten in a wet wool coat with snow melting off your boots, is history. Number 3. Flapper pie. Here is the one I promised, the dessert most Canadians under 50 have never heard of, and it might be the most Canadian dessert ever made. A graham wafer crust, a thick layer of vanilla custard, a crown of meringue, and a dusting of graham crumbs over the top. That is all. It was born on the prairies in the 1920s, named for the flapper girls of the era, and by the 1950s it sat in every lunch counter pie case from Brandon to Lethbridge. 15 cents a slice. The recipe lived on the back of the graham wafer box and in the heads of 10,000 prairie women, which was exactly the problem. Nobody famous ever wrote it down. No company ever boxed it. When the counters closed and the women passed on, flapper pie evaporated from the national memory, surviving only in scattered small-town cafes and the occasional homesick food blog. An entire region's signature dessert, lost because everyone assumed someone else would remember. Number 2. The Friday Fish and Chips Special. In the 1950s in Canada, Friday meant fish, full stop. Catholic families did not eat meat on Fridays, and the lunch counters built their whole week around it. Fresh halibut on the west coast, cod in the east, pickerel on the prairies if you were lucky. Dipped in batter and fried in beef tallow until the crust shattered. With chips, coleslaw, and a wedge of lemon, the special ran 50 cents. And by noon on Friday, there was a lineup out the door. The malt vinegar bottle never stopped moving down the counter. The tallow was the secret modern shops abandoned. Beef fat fries hotter and crisper than vegetable oil, which is why your grandfather insists fish and chips used to taste better. He is not nostalgic. He is correct. When the church relaxed the Friday rule in the 1960s and the counters switched to cheap oil, the golden age of Canadian fish and chips quietly ended. Number 1, the hot chicken sandwich. If Canada's lunch counters had a national dish, this was it. And in Quebec, it very nearly still is. Shredded roasted chicken was piled between 2 slices of white bread. The whole thing flooded with golden chicken gravy until the plate became a lake. Then finished with a generous scoop of sweet green peas scattered over the top like confetti. Fries on the side. Coleslaw, if you ask nicely. 65 cents. It was everything the lunch counter stood for on one plate. Cheap cuts made glorious, nothing wasted. Gravy is a love language. Factory workers ate it, secretaries ate it, children earned it for good report cards. Quebec's Casse Croûtes kept the faith, and you can still find a proper hot chicken there today, which makes it the sole survivor on this list. But everywhere else in Canada, the dish that once defined an everyday lunch slipped away with the counters that served it, remembered only when the smell of chicken gravy catches you off guard, and suddenly you are 9 years old again, spinning on a stool, waiting for your plate. So here is my challenge. Ask the oldest person in your family about the lunch counter in their town. Ask what they ordered. I promise you they remember the price, the stool, the waitress's name. Then tell me in the comments which of these 25 you would bring back first, because I am betting on the flapper pie. And I want to know if Quebec viewers agree that the hot chicken never really left. These counters fed a country for pocket change, and we let them vanish without a fight. The least we can do is remember the menu,